Hello class, this is Professor Creek. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to use Capsim and make decisions for your simulation. So when you log into Capsim, click on the menu where it says Decisions and it'll bring you to this screen. And you'll have two options. One, you can use the web version, or you can actually download the Excel spreadsheet here on the right. I recommend that everyone use the web spreadsheet because regardless of the version of Excel you use and regardless of the type of computer you're on, everyone's version will look the same if we all use the web spreadsheet. So that's what I'll do here, and I'm going to start my draft with official decisions. So for this example, I have already completed round 1 and I'm about to make my decisions for round 2. So when you log in for the first time, you probably will not get this pop-up that says there's labor negotiation. So this will happen from time to time, and essentially what this means is your employees are going to want to get more money. So you have to decide how much to give them. I'm not really going to go into this. I'm more interested in making sure everyone understands the basics of how to make decisions. So in the web version, this is what you'll see, and where you want to start is in the Courier. And to access the Courier, you go to Reports, and you might as well start at the front page. So even in round 1 you would have this Capstone Courier, and each year this is going to update. So right now it's showing the results of round 1. So I've already played the first round. And as I scroll through this, I'm going to be looking for anything that looks bizarre to me. Because this is going to tell me what my company could potentially be doing better. And as you progress from round 1 to 8, or in the practice from 1 to 3, you'll want to see how you're doing compared to those other companies. So Andrews is my company, and that will be your company as well. And these other 5 are your competitors. So let's see how I did in round 1. So the first thing you'll notice is my return on sales is below average. So my competitors have done better there. Same for return on assets, and my profits are not as high. Typically, from what I've seen in Capsim, this is fairly routine during round 2 or 3 of the simulation. The reason being, at least some of your competition, they don't really make as many moves as probably they should be doing, which works in the short term but not in the long term. So during rounds 1, 2, maybe 3, if it looks as though your profits aren't aligning with those competitors, keep in mind that some of the decisions that you've made are probably long-term, whereas those are short-term, and eventually you should see that flip. So continuing down, we see a similar story here at stocks and bonds. So I'm the triangle, which is right here. So you see I'm with the pack, nothing too alarming. Again, I do have below average stock price, but I'm expecting in future rounds that will change. So, what can we do better in the future? This financial summary is where we can start to answer that question. So, here's my company, and I'm basically going to go through this and compare with all my competitors and look for anything that looks strange. So the first one that I see is here. I have 7.89 million in inventory, whereas all my competition has only, a little over a million. Here's 2 million. So I probably have way more inventory than I need. So when I make my decisions for round 3, I'm going to try to decrease my inventory, A, so that I can get more cash, and B, so that I can align better with the competition. So as I continue to scroll down, when I look at my debt, I see some more discrepancy. In current debt, I have 3,000, whereas all my competitors have 11,000. So that's a little curious to me. So when I go in and make changes, I'm going to want to see why they might have more current debt than I do. And also, it looks like I'm on the high end of long-term debt. So later on, we'll look at why that might be. So here's the production analysis. And really all I use this for is to make sure that my production and my capacity are fairly similar. Right? If this is not close to equal, so sometimes I'll see students that have production way down here but capacity way up here, or vice versa. Either one is a problem. So you want to try to keep these fairly close together. If production is a little higher than capacity, that's okay. You'll see mine is just barely over. Same with Chester. They have a little bit more than I do of excess production. All that means is you're paying employees overtime at some point to make sure that you get that extra production. And if you choose to, you can account for that in your decisions to either increase or decrease production as needed. If we scroll down a little further to production information, this, in my opinion, is the most important piece of the Capstone Courier for your decision making, because you get to see all 5 product segments, and you get to see all 5 product segments for your competition as well. So here's each of the segments: traditional, low, high, performance, and size. And again, everything that starts with A is your company. And then it gives you information regarding each of those segments. And you can use that to determine what you need to do better in the next round and where you are in comparison to your competitors. So let's take a look at what we're doing good and what we're doing poorly. A good place to start is by looking at the revision date. So if you have a recent revision date, that's a good sign. It means that you're up with the latest and greatest product. And if you look at my 4th product here, it hasn't been revised in 3 years, going on the 4th. So especially when you look at all the other competitors, you see that's one of the oldest products available on the market. So that's a problem, and I'm going to want to fix it whenever I go into the Decisions tab. So let's start with the first of my products, Able. If we look at the performance, and keep in mind this is the traditional segment, so it's supposed to be about average of everything. When we look at performance, competitors 5.4, 5.7, here's 6.1, so a little bit better than us. 5.6, 5.6. So right now my performance is on the high side, which is good. My size is 13.5, and looking at the others, 13.5 is actually the smallest, which is also good. And then let's take a look at the price. I'm priced at $27, which is the lowest price. So what this tells me is that I have one of the better performing products, I have one of the smallest products, and I'm charging the least. So probably I can charge more money for this product because it's better than the competition's for the most part. So when I go into the decisions, you'll see that I account for that. So then I'd make similar determinations for the rest of my product line here. I'm going to not do that for time's sake, and I may explain a little bit more of that whenever I'm actually making my decisions. So the next part of the Capstone Courier goes into more detail about each of the segments. So you see the first one is the traditional segment, and you'll see here that I have the least market share within this segment. So I'm going to be trying to increase my market share for the traditional segment, and the same thing can be seen here. These are all my competitors, and you're looking for the one that starts with A. So here's mine, Able, and I have the lowest market share, 10%. And then you can do the same thing for each of the others. So here's the low-end market segment. You'll see that my market share is about average here. The high-end market segment, here I am maybe a little below average. Performance segment, average. And the size market segment, I'm actually leading. So I want to try to capitalize on that as well. Another thing you can see from the individual market segments is the promo budget. So this is how much I'm spending on advertising or promotions. The sales budget is also here. And this is another area where you can tell why maybe you're not getting the profits that you'd expect. And as I'll show you here shortly, all of my advertising, promotion budget, sales budget, it's the least of all my competitors pretty much for every market segment. So here's the size market segment. I'm at 200. All my competitors are over 1,000. Keep in mind, this is actually 1.1 million, not 1,100. Same here. This is 200,000, not 200. And if we go back up, we see the same thing here. So here's Aft, which is my performance product, and my promo budget is 700, and everyone who's beating me right now has over 1,000. So probably I'd want to increase that. Same here. I'm at 800. Everyone's over 1,000 that's beating me. So you get the picture. I'm going to want to make a change in my promotion costs. So if you go further, you'll find a perceptual map, which I explained in my last video, so I don't want to take up too much time on that now. And then lastly, you'll find an HR report. And this is going to be more important after this round. Right now, all the numbers are fairly similar. But after this round, where we'll be changing the wage, you could see some more variation here. So now we'll go actually make the decisions, and I'm going to keep this open for reference. And again, I like to use the product information primarily, so I'm going to just leave it there. And if we go back to our main page and click on decisions, we can use each of these 5 areas to make different choices and try to ultimately increase our company's profit. So first I'm looking at R&D, and you'll see that we can change the performance level, the size of the product, and MTBF, which is mean time before failure. So obviously we want the best performance, the smallest size, and the longest time before the product fails. But again, you want to balance that with how much it costs to produce and how much you can sell it for. Down in the right here you have the age profile, and generally speaking you don't want to let the age get too high because customers will lose interest if it's been on the market for too long. So you want to make changes here, and that will take the age of your product down. You also have the option of creating a new product. So say I have a product that has 9-year-old age, I think it's too long, I can just get rid of it, and here I can create a whole new product. I'm not going to do that, but if I wanted to, I could just call it Apple, and I could create a performance, a size, and a mean time before failure. A word of caution, as you might expect, creating a brand new product is going to be expensive, so expect some cost to come out there. Okay, so let's go ahead and make our first decisions. In Able, if we go back to the Capstone Courier, we see that we had just revised it, so that's good. It was one of our leading sales units, so we have 904 sales. Acre is our leader. So we want to try to improve this segment because there's obviously money to be had here. Customers are interested. So we want to continue trying to improve our product, so I'll increase the performance by a little. I'll decrease the size by a little. And let's go back and take a look at the mean time before failure. And it looks like I'm already on the high side. So just to save money, I won't change that this time. And if you want to, you can click recalculate after each one, or you can click recalculate at the very end after you change everything. When we go to Acre, let's take a look at Acre. We see it's just been revised as well. Let's take a look at the mean time before failure here. Right now we have the longest mean time before failure, which is good. The performance is the highest, which is good, and the size is the lowest, which is interesting that we didn't sell more. Even though it is our highest unit sold, you'll see that we got beat by a lot of our competition. But if you remember, the promotion score was low, so we'll want to tweak that as well. So we're already leading in size and performance. The only other thing we could lead in is mean time before failure, so I'll just bump that up a little bit, and I think we can really make some money here. So I'm hoping this can be our biggest producer. You see, pretty low R&D cost for that little change, and I think once we add some more advertising, we can really make some money here. For Atom, I'm not really gonna change Atom for now. Reason being, it's our lowest units sold. Customers across the board are generally not as interested here. It does have the highest contribution margin, But for now, especially since I'm spending money elsewhere, I'm just not going to make a change there. For aft, let's take a look. So again, we're just comparing. We have about an average mean time before failure. We have maybe a little below average performance and the biggest size. So there's some work to be done here on aft. Again, if you wanted to just let this one be and try to make money elsewhere, you could do that. I'll try to reduce the size a bit and increase the performance a bit, and see if we can increase our market share there. For the last one, agape, we have just revised it, which is good. We have the longest time before failure. The performance is low, so we'd want to increase that. And our size is a bit, well, no, our size is about average, I guess. So if we wanted to, we could increase the performance on agape a bit. Another word of caution is that in your revision dates, you'll notice all of mine are in 2018, which is good. Depending on the change, it may take more than a year to complete. So this would change to 19 or 20. A, it would be very expensive, but B, when you get to the next round, you won't be able to make any changes for that market or product segment. So you can only make a change here if your product has already been revised in completion. So that's it for R&D, and usually that's the one that takes the longest. Now we can move on to marketing. So based on the product information, my strategy, and certainly there's plenty of different strategies you could use. My strategy is this. Because I sold the most in Able and Acre, I'm going to concentrate on those two. And if you recall, I'm also the market leader for the agape product. So those are the three that I'm going to focus on here, and as such, I'm going to spend the most money in advertising. So the first thing we look at is the price of the product. And again, using the product information, you can see how you relate to your competition. And we already talked about this. For Able, my price is $27. I have a pretty good product, yet I have the cheapest price. Also, there's a good chance that in the next round my competition may raise their price. So I'm just going to go ahead and raise my price now and hope that with the combination of extra advertising plus a better product, that this price raise is justified. And I think it is. It's still fairly in line with the competition. Another one I want to look at is aft. We see the price set at $33. And all but one of my competitors has it for $1.50 more than that. So I'm just going to follow suit and charge $34.50 for that product. Now to the fun stuff, the promotion. And I think this is the biggest change I'll be making in this decision round. So for Able, we want to go down to the segment analysis, and Able is the traditional segment. So I find it here, and I'm spending 500 on promo and 500 on sales. My competition is much more than that. So 1100, as high as 1300. So, you know, you may want to go a little higher, a little lower than I am. Again, I don't know what results this is going to produce, but to get in line with my competition, I'm going to up that by 600,000. So I'm going to enter 1100 here and 1100 here, and then my forecast is actually going to be higher than the benchmark, because the benchmark is prior to these changes. So now I've made a better product. I have a higher sales budget, a higher promo budget. So maybe let's be a little optimistic and say I can sell 1,800 of these. So then I'll do the same for Acre, Atom, Aft, and Agape. For Acre, here we go, which is the low end. And remember, I'm focusing on Able, Acre, and Agape. So here I'm not quite as far off. I'm at 900. The promo budget for my competition is around 1100. Sales budget maybe 1200 average. So I'll just put those in for Acre. 1100 for the promo and 1200 for the sales budget. And again, I'm going to hope that I can sell more than the benchmark. I'm not going to make any changes for these two in terms of advertising, because those aren't my focus. As a result, especially since I increased this price, you know, maybe I'll forecast a little less. Generally, it's a good idea to forecast the worst case scenario. So I'm going to be a little pessimistic there. Lastly is Agape. Whoops. So if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I'm looking for the last market segment here. Here we go. So Agape, remember I'm the market leader here, but still I have by far the lowest sales budget and the lowest promo budget. So I'm going to want to really increase this because I want to keep my lead here. So when we look at the average, again, it's probably a little over 1100 for each. So I'm going to make a huge change here and up those both by $1 million. So as you might expect, all this is going to cost some money. Whoops, I forgot to enter my forecast here. If you don't enter anything, it should change it automatically, but just to be safe, I'll do it again. So next we can go to production, and essentially all you want to look for here is, am I producing at an acceptable rate, and should I buy more capacity to do so? So again, I'm focusing on Able, Acre, and Agape. Let's look at Able. We forecasted 1,800. We're producing 1,200. However, if you recall, we had a problem with inventory, and this is where the problem lies. We have almost 500 units of inventory on hand. So if we take that 500 plus 1,200, that's 1,700. That almost accounts for our forecast. So maybe just to be safe, I'll increase this to 1,350. Notice here my plant can't keep up with that. So I can either use some overtime or I can buy some extra capacity. So just to show you, I'll buy some extra capacity here. For acre, the production level is much higher than it needs to be because I'm only forecasting 1,300, yet I'm making 1,800, which would leave much too high inventory. So I want to decrease that, and maybe I'll decrease that to 1,220, and then anything that I sell over 1,300 hopefully can be accounted for by that inventory. Same here. I'm only forecasting 150, so I can decrease that production schedule. I already have some amount of inventory, so maybe I don't need that much. Maybe I can do 125. Here again is too high, so maybe I produce 200. And lastly, my sales forecast here is much higher than it was before. So I may want to increase the capacity here, maybe by 150, and I want to also produce more. And you'll see my inventory is quite low, so I'm actually going to change this to above the sales forecast in hopes to get a little bit of inventory in this product segment. So hit recalculate, and here's the scary part. So all this is gonna cost a lot of money, right? But hopefully over time this will pay off. And down here you can see your profit margins. So again, I'm going to skip human resources for now. You'll have to do this in round 2. In round 1, you don't even have to make human resources decisions. So the last decisions you need to make are financial decisions. And if you recall, back on the Capstone Courier, we saw a problem potentially with our debt because our competitors had relatively higher amounts of current debt than we did, which is shown right here. They're all at 11 million and we're only at 3 million. And when we go down to long-term debt, I've got relatively higher long-term debt. And the reason that is, I suspect, is when you look at the interest rates. So here's my current debt, and the interest rate is 9.9%. Interestingly, the long-term debt interest rate is 11.3%. So with that in mind, I say we swap out some current debt for long-term debt and get that cheaper interest rate. So I'm going to borrow $10 million worth of current debt, and I'm going to retire $10 million worth of long-term debt. And when I hit recalculate, you can see that took effect here. Also, you'll notice that the current projection for my cash in 2018, so next time after I process this round, it went up. So really, I could retire more of that debt if I want to. Another thing I could do is maybe try to make my shareholders happy and give them a dividend. So let's see what happens if I do that. Recalculate. So now you'll see that my cash projection went down, which is okay. You know, it's good to keep your shareholders happy. Certainly you don't have to do that. So maybe I want to use a little more cash and pay off a little more of my debt here. So I'll just recalculate one more time. Again, you can see our current situation here in terms of the liabilities and equity. And essentially now we're done with that round. So some rounds you may make a lot of decisions, especially near the end. You may make very few decisions if your company is doing well. But you really want to use that Capstone Courier to base your decisions off of. The very last thing you'll need to do is click on File and Update Official Decisions. Now you could do each of the decisions one by one, but since I just did them all, I just need to select all Andrew's decisions are ready, make sure that all team decisions is marked here, and hit save, and you're done with that round's decisions. The professor will then process that round, and you'll be able to move on to the next round. So I hope this has helped. If you have any questions, please let me know.